What's up everyone, welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be breaking down UFC 300 and giving my brief thoughts about the fights that have been announced. The main event was announced last night, but it was massively overshadowed by the crazy performance from Ilia Topuria in the main event of UFC 298. If you don't know, I went 11-1 on picks on this card, perfectly predicting the main card and even predict Ilia Topuria to win by round 2 KO. If you want to see my full card recap and reaction to each and every fight on that card, make sure to check out my most recent video. But with that being said, let's get into the video. UFC 300 with the main event of Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. This is a good main event, but not as good as some people wanted it to be. And to me, it doesn't make too much sense considering UFC 301 is in Brazil. What is the main event going to be? I have no clue. It shouldn't be DDP versus Izzy. That's a fight that doesn't make sense to put in Brazil. You had a great Brazilian champion, one of the bigger Brazilian champion stars in quite some time. You could have put him against Jamahal Hill in the main event there, but nope. The UFC is running the risk of putting Pereira here, and I think they want to turn him around at UFC 301 against Magomed Ankalaev, which I don't like from Alex Pereira, and I'll tell you this much right now. Alex Pereira is my favorite fighter, but I still think he loses to Magomed Ankalaev, and if he's returning 1 month later, I really do not like it for him here. Talking about the main event of UFC 300, it is great. It's going to be very fun to watch. My only criticism is Jamahal Hill and Alex Pereira that big of a fight that it should be headlining this card? With that being said, hey, I like Alex Pereira. I don't mind him getting it. It's probably very good for his career, and it shows that the UFC knows that he is somewhat of a star or brings some attention to this fight. Plus, it is such a good card underneath it that I think a lot of fans will still want to tune in. Let's break down the fight very, very briefly. My early lean right now is Alex Pereira. I know Jamahal Hill beat Glover Teixeira and battered him better than Jiri Prochazka did, but I do think that was a withered version of Glover Teixeira, and outside of that, he hasn't really beaten anybody. Glover Teixeira looked very slow in that fight. I need to rewatch the fight and do a little bit more research on Jamahal Hill, but I'll tell you this much, he's got a very good chance. A lot of these Pereira fans are saying Jamahal Hill has no chance. That's not the case. He's got the quicker hands, he's got some very good straight punches, and he fights out of the southpaw stance, but sometimes these southpaws are very open to getting caught by the left hook, and unfortunately for Jamahal Hill, Alex Pereira's left hook is some of the best work in his entire game, along with his low kicks, and considering Jamahal Hill is coming off an Achilles tear or an Achilles rupture, something like that, the low kicks aren't going to be very well for him either. The two best weapons in Alex Pereira's game are his left hook and the low kicks. They work together very well, but we have seen in the past an Achilles tear doesn't really work well when it comes to sports. If you follow basketball at all, I'll briefly bring this up, but Kobe Bryant was looking great, had a couple of Achilles tears, and he just was never the same. It really ruins your mobility, and sure, you can have a good recovery, but it seems like Jamahal Hill wasn't really pushing to return in April. He was pushing towards May and June, I do believe. So this might be a little bit too soon for him. The calf kicks from Alex Pereira are going to target the leg near the Achilles. I don't like that. And sure, Jamahal Hill is quicker, and Alex Pereira is 37 years old, which is why this massively concerns me. But I would be picking Jamahal Hill if I knew the guy was going to be shooting takedowns, because Alex Pereira gets taken down all the time, and Jamahal Hill is no joke on the feet. The thing is, when you watch Jamahal Hill's YouTube channel, he has said nonstop that he is not shooting takedowns. And just the way that he says it, I could pull up a clip potentially, but he's just saying nonstop, I'm not shooting takedowns on Alex Pereira because I feel disrespected by the Twitter comments. Really dumb decision for Jamahal Hill. I see him saying that I'm the real champ. You're not the real champ, Alex Pereira. That is not the case. If we're being entirely honest, you beat Glover Teixeira, the guy who literally lost to Jiri Prochazka. Jiri Prochazka was the real champ. He returned and then lost to Alex Pereira. Regardless of whether or not you thought that was an early stoppage, Pereira dropped him, had him really hurt, potentially could have finished that fight, and the fight was really swaying towards his favor there. Pereira's good. He's going to work the low kicks. They will be there. Jamahal Hill's stance is pretty open to getting low kicked. Sure, he's quick, and he has a nice head kick. That's actually something very underrated about Jamahal Hill's game. We saw this against Glover Teixeira. He's got some nice kicks. Now, Alex Pereira's head kick defense is pretty good. He's dealt with some very solid kickers in the past. Israel Adesanya, some nice body kicks. I just don't think there's anything on the feet that Jamahal Hill has that Alex Pereira hasn't seen before. But Alex Pereira's weakness on the feet when it comes to striking is straight punches. Jamahal Hill has very good straight punches. He's got some very solid power. He's got the quicker hands. Alex Pereira's getting up there in age. We'll see how it goes. I am going to be predicting Alex Pereira. I'm going to say like round 2 or 3 KO, somewhere around there. I think the calf kicks will slowly work in, but he's going to have to stay away from the power of Jamahal Hill and just the speed. I wonder if the, what is it called, the southpaw stance does bring him problems, but I do think he's fought southpaws throughout his career. He's got some underrated counters. I was saying this at the Jiri Prochazka fight. I actually predicted late round 2 KO there as well. Got that one correct. Had a pretty good read on that fight, as I am a very big fan of Jiri Prochazka, and I'll briefly break down his fight later on this card. But Alex Pereira, I think, works in the low kicks, maintains rage. What he does very good about the low kicks, too, is it's not only that he lands them at the perfect spot and his low kicks are super powerful, it's that he leans back, so it's really hard to catch him while he is throwing the low kick. And I think Jamahal Hill is looking to do that. I think Jamahal Hill's going to look for the KO early. He's going to come very close to it, but Pereira's going to survive, keep range, really working the low kicks. Slowly as the fight goes on, it's going to favor Pereira, even though Jamahal Hill might have the slightly better cardio. Just with the type of strikes that Alex Pereira throws to the body, to the legs, it really hinders his opponent's movements, cardio, and whatnot in the later rounds. So as of now, I'm not expecting Jamahal Hill to shoot any takedown. He has seemed very adamant about it on his YouTube channel because he feels disrespected by the Twitter trolls who are Alex Pereira fans. Really dumb decision to really just lower your chances at winning this fight as a champion. But you got to respect Jamahal Hill. He wants to go out there and knock out the striker. I give him a lot of respect for that. This is going to be an underratedly very fun build-up. Jamahal Hill is going to be talking a lot of shit. Maybe not directed exactly at Alex Pereira, but more towards the Twitter trolls. If you haven't seen on Twitter, Jamahal Hill has replied to a lot of guys. Anyone that criticizes him slightly is going to be getting a comment from Jamahal Hill. He's fun, though. He's entertaining. Just stuff like that is entertaining, but ultimately, this fight is so much fun. I don't mind it that much as a UFC 300 main event because the build-up should be underratedly very fun to watch. And not only that, the main event is guaranteed to deliver. Both of these guys have such a fun striking style. This is not my official pick yet because if Jamahal Hill goes out there and says, I'm going to be shooting takedowns, which I highly doubt considering what he has said so far in his YouTube channel, then I may end up predicting him. But I do think that Alex Pereira, despite being 37 years old, has been the more active fighter, is now the champion. Probably has confidence oozing from his veins, going to work in the low kicks, left hook, potentially counter. Showed some nice counters against Jiri Prochazka. He gets hit by straight punches, but Jamahal Hill respectfully isn't even a light heavyweight when it comes to his frame. I do think he should be able to cut down to the middleweight division if he really did try. He's fat. I don't really like that from Jamahal Hill either. He's been out for a long time, not been able to train. I hope it's a fun fight. It should be a fun fight. I don't really see any way of it not being a fun fight. I'd be really surprised if it goes to a decision, and if it goes to a decision, that means it was probably a very insane and super fun fight. So let's move on to some of the other fights of the card. Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. I am going to be picking Zhang Weili. Look, Yan Xiaonan has been taken down in the past, but on the feet, she's dangerous. But so is Amanda Lemos, and Amanda Lemos really looked horrible against Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili is just, I guess the way to put it is female Volk to a certain degree. She can work in the takedowns, very dominant, very stocky, got some good power, pressures nonstop, fairly technical. She's fun to watch. This is my favorite female MMA fighter, but Yan Xiaonan does have a fairly good chance if it is on the feet. I just don't see her stuffing the takedowns. Zhang Weili seems so much stronger than all of her opponents. She's got solid 5-round cardio. So Zhang Weili will be the pick here. I haven't really thought about the method yet, but I just know that I probably will be picking Zhang Weili based off of her ability to take it down to the ground and even have success on the feet as well. But she does get hit, and Yan Xiaonan does have some very solid power for this division. Moving on to Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje. I am going to be picking Justin Gaethje, but I think Max Holloway has a very solid chance. I know a lot of people initially didn't like this fight, but Max Holloway has solid cardio. I think he is a taller guy. I saw them facing off at the UFC 300 Q&A this weekend. He's a taller guy. I'm not sure if he's a rangier guy, I imagine so, but he's a very technical guy with a very solid chin, and sometimes he can just disregard the power from his opponents if he's able to eat all the shots from Justin Gaethje. One of the heavier hitters in the lightweight division, but I think if he disregards the power and his chin completely holds up, he has a very good chance as he pushes an insane pace. If he's able to pressure nonstop, he could have success in the later rounds, but Justin Gaethje has proven 5-round cardio, has looked very technical as of recently, and just this new form of Justin Gaethje that's beating Rafael Fiziev. Granted, that was a very close fight, and you can argue the eye poke really did change the outcome of that fight, and Rafael Fiziev did start to gas, but Justin Gaethje worked his jab very well, did better as the fight played out, and then even against Dustin Poirier, you know, he righted his wrong in the past. He was knocked out in the past against Dustin Poirier, but then he came back, head KO in round 2, and he looked very good in round 1 as well. I think he's really hit a new stride in his career on the feet, and this should be a primarily striking battle. Maybe Max Holloway works in some wrestling. He's got an underrated grappling game. I think he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. I mean, he has some solid takedown defense. Doesn't use his takedown offense that much. He's taken down Yair, a couple other fights in the past, but I'd like to see it here. I'd like to see how it works out as Justin Gaethje has been submitted by Khabib, and Charles Oliveira hasn't shown the greatest jiu-jitsu when on the ground, been submitted almost every single time the fight hits the ground for him. So I think Max Holloway could potentially find a submission. He doesn't have the power to where I'm going to rely on him to crack the chin of Justin Gaethje. Maybe it's a TKO scenario in the later rounds if he's able to push such an insane pace. But this is an interesting fight because it's a featherweight moving up against a lightweight. But I think Max Holloway has enough time to bulk up. And to be fair, he has the frame. Maybe not the muscle mass, but he has kind of the frame to become a lightweight. And maybe he has some success here. I think this will be a very fun 5-round war where I'm going to trust Justin Gaethje to land the more powerful shots. He's just seeming so great lately in his career. And sure, Max Holloway looked good against Arnold Allen, but it was a pretty competitive fight. TKZ, he knocked him out, but I don't think TKZ is that good. If Max Holloway wins this fight, I wonder if they keep him at the lightweight division or give him the title shot back down at 145 versus Ilia Topuria. That'd be very interesting. I probably would pick Ilia Topuria, but I'm going to be very interested to see how Justin Gaethje does against Max Holloway before I make that official prediction. So yeah, Justin Gaethje is going to be the pick. I'm going to say like a 49-46, but I do think that he could potentially find the TKO. As Max Holloway has taken a lot of damage throughout his career, I'm probably not going to bet on it though, just because Max Holloway's chin has proven me wrong time and time again. He's taken big shots from Volk, Dustin Poirier. The list goes on. I could keep going for a very long time. Anyways, very fun fight. Regardless of what side you're on and how confident you are on the Justin Gaethje side, I can guarantee you there will be moments from Max Holloway where your stomach's dropping if you have a lot of money on Justin Gaethje. There will be moments where Max Holloway is having success, making this a very competitive and fun fight, and maybe he implements a very good game plan against Justin Gaethje. Maybe he really just goes out there and pushes an insane pace and is able to wilt Justin Gaethje. Maybe not cutting as much weight to the 145-pound division can massively benefit him here, but ultimately, as a predictor, I got to side with Justin Gaethje here. Moving on to Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. My early lean is Charles Oliveira. I'm pretty confident that I'll end up on the Charles Oliveira side because I've never been very high on Arman Tsarukyan striking, to be quite honest with you. Look, I know he's got a good body kick and a good head kick, very flexible legs, but when it comes to the hands, I've always felt like he doesn't really set anything up. I saw this against Mateusz Gamrot. I saw this against Joaquim Silva. Not many other fights because he's grappling a lot of the time. In his most recent performance, he fought Beneil Dariush, and I thought Beneil Dariush was winning that fight until he wasn't. And although Arman Tsarukyan hasn't shown the greatest power throughout his career, he was able to flatline Beneil Dariush. I think a lot of that had to do with the damage that Charles Oliveira and other fighters in the past have inflicted on Beneil Dariush. But I do think Arman Tsarukyan has the potential to potentially TKO Charles Oliveira as Charles Oliveira gets hit, and he has solid chin recovery, but he's going to follow Charles Oliveira down to the ground if he does hurt Charles Oliveira. And Charles Oliveira's striking defense really isn't that great, right? But he's fun to watch. And here's the thing. I think that Charles Oliveira has a very solid left hook, the same shot that caught Arman Tsarukyan against Joaquim Silva. Arman Tsarukyan, he lunges forward when he throws his strikes, and I've been saying that a solid counter striker is going to drop this dude and hurt him massively, which is why I would be picking Islam Makhachev against him in a rematch. I think Charles Oliveira will throw in the pocket. Charles Oliveira probably has the quicker, more powerful hands, and if he lands, he's got a good submission game. And I know people are going to compare this directly to Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira, but it's much different because Makhachev has shown a much better submission game on the come-up, and we now know that Islam Makhachev is one of the better strikers in the lightweight division with some very good counter-striking and just some very good striking defense in general. Leading up to the Charles Oliveira fight, it wasn't really shown to us that that was the case, but since then we have learned so much about Islam Makhachev. We have learned that he is one of the most skilled fighters in the entire UFC. Arman Tsarukyan, to me, is not Islam Makhachev. His striking defense isn't close to as good. I can understand that Arman Tsarukyan definitely has a very tough style with the takedown threat, but I don't think just a takedown threat is going to be enough to threaten Charles Oliveira. Now, people are going to be bringing up the fight against the jiu-jitsu guy. What's his name? His name is Joel Alvarez, and they're going to say, well, he TKO'd him. Was it the second round? But anyways, they're going to mention how he landed the beautiful elbow and his nose started bleeding and he won because of that and TKO'd that guy, the jiu-jitsu guy, with a very similar style to Charles Oliveira. Two things. Charles Oliveira is much better on the feet and arguably better on the ground as well. Charles Oliveira is one of the better submission guys in the entire UFC. He chains together submissions very well, looking for the finish. That's what Charles is good at doing, and I think Arman Tsarukyan hasn't shown to me a good enough submission game to where I'm going to be confident in him on the ground. And the second thing that I did want to bring up is against Joel Alvarez, Arman Tsarukyan wasn't landing jack shit up until that elbow. And that was basically the first strike he landed on the ground. And of course, for whatever reason, it just split open the nose perfectly of Joel Alvarez. I have watched MMA for a long time, and a lot of the times, the first time people land elbows, it does not split open the nose like that. In fact, the 10th, 20th, and 30th time does not split open the face like that. It was just perfect from Arman Tsarukyan. I hate to call it a fluke. I do think it was a fluke. I would pick Arman Tsarukyan in a rematch versus Joel Alvarez, but it was interesting to see Joel Alvarez being very good at tying up the hands from Arman Tsarukyan, not allowing him to land any ground and pound shots well in dominant positions. So to me, I have seen Charles Oliveira do that, but on a higher level against better opponents, against Beneil Dariush, a very solid grappler. But Neil wasn't able to land any shots because Charles Oliveira is controlling the hands, keeping very safe in half guard, and then exploding back up to the feet when he needed to. Against Islam Makhachev, same thing. Controlling the hands, not allowing Islam Makhachev to land many strikes. So I think if Arman Tsarukyan takes down Charles Oliveira will control the hands from bottom of Arman Tsarukyan very well, not allowing him to land great ground and pound and finding the right time to get back up to the feet. And I think Arman Tsarukyan might be looking for a big performance here to look for the title shot, as Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway is also on this card. So they could potentially be competing for a title shot. I think the winner of this fight 100% should get the title shot. In my opinion, I think this is the best fight in the entire card. I love Charles Oliveira. I'm really interested in Arman Tsarukyan. I love Pereira. He's my favorite fighter. I guess those two are probably tied for me. Now that I think about it, those are the two best fights on the card for me by far. Outside of that, I mean, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, probably third right there. But Charles Oliveira, dude, fun style, right? On the feet, great knockout power. He'll march forward, looking for big shots, get hits at time. And if Arman Tsarukyan lands clean, he can definitely hurt Charles Oliveira, follow him up to the ground, find a TKO. But like I said, I think Charles Oliveira will be very good at containing the hands from Arman Tsarukyan. Watch the Joel Alvarez fight back. Literally, Joel was doing such a good job of doing the exact same thing Charles Oliveira has done to very solid grapplers in Islam Makhachev and Beneil Dariush. And I'd argue that Charles Oliveira is better at doing it. And then obviously, one elbow slips through, nose breaks open. You could see the cartilage in his nose. Very gross, but I'm just saying, I don't expect the first elbow to land on Charles Oliveira to split open his nose the same way that it did to Joel Alvarez. So I'm taking the dog here. I like Charles Oliveira. I like that he's staying active. Respecting him for taking this fight. And the winner of this will be fighting Islam Makhachev. I don't think I will be predicting any of them to beat Islam Makhachev, but I mean, Volk just got knocked out by Topuria, so maybe Islam Makhachev's KO over Volk isn't looking too good. But I still think Islam Makhachev is so good. I think he has a great style to beat either one of these guys. Arman Tsarukyan, great grappler. Lacking submission game in my head. I don't know if he has a submission win on record, I do believe, but I'm not entirely sure. Fact check that. He's more of a TKO guy, ground and pound guy. Hasn't shown the greatest submission game, so that's why I'm going to go with Charles Oliveira. Let's move on to Jiri Prochazka versus Aleksandar Rakic. I'm going to be taking Jiri Prochazka. Actually, no, I'm taking Aleksandar Rakic, but I don't even know, guys. Here's the thing about this fight. I'm a massive Jiri Prochazka fan. I don't mind you picking either one of the sides, as Aleksandar Rakic is coming off an ACL tear, massive layoff, and now he's coming up against Jiri Prochazka, the guy with insane knockout power, who imposes his will, who is coming off a knockout loss against Alex Pereira, so I don't like that. Why I'm thinking I'm going to end up picking Aleksandar Rakic, and the reason why I say I don't know yet, is because I feel like I haven't watched tape on Aleksandar Rakic in such a long time. I need to refresh and see how I feel about him. But he can work in the takedowns. I think he can find the takedowns of Jiri Prochazka. Prochazka's takedown defense isn't that good. There were moments where he had Glover Teixeira hurt, and Glover Teixeira just went with a pathetic desperation takedown, and he was able to find him against Jiri Prochazka. Sure, Jiri Prochazka's hard to submit, very solid at scrambling back up to the feet, but I think Rakic can find takedowns. Takedown threat would massively change this fight. And then he's got great low kicks. The same thing that Alex Pereira was using to fuck up the legs of Jiri Prochazka. Slow him down, was clearly affecting Jiri Prochazka. And I've been saying this for a long time. Large reason why I picked Pereira over Jiri Prochazka. And I did pick it round 2 KO. Called that fight perfectly, by the way. But anyways, Jiri Prochazka, very wide stance. Aleksandar Rakic will be landing the low kicks. He's got solid low kicks of his own. I'm sure Jan Blachowicz had success with the low kicks back, but I don't think Jiri Prochazka is going to be throwing low kicks. Jan Blachowicz did land some very big shots on Aleksandar Rakic in round 1, though, where if that is Jiri Prochazka, it could be a much different story, and Rakic could be flatlined. But ultimately, Rakic, big, long, rangy guy, good low kicks, can work in the grappling, and he's not a joke on the feet either. So I feel like I'm going to end up picking him, sadly, as a massive Jiri Prochazka fan. But please let me rewatch film before I give you my official prediction, because I don't even know how I feel about Aleksandar Rakic. I feel like when I remember Aleksandar Rakic, it feels nostalgic. It's been so long since he's fought. I mean, he's kind of got the boring style, and it just feels like when you have one of the most entertaining fighters, if not the most entertaining fighter on the entire roster versus Aleksandar Rakic, who can make this fight very boring despite having fun performances, it's going to be a very boring performance. I don't know. So Aleksandar Rakic right now, the early lean, and it's not confident whatsoever, is Rakic by decision, but he's gotten hit before, and I'm not ruling out a Jiri Prochazka KO. I'm kind of excited for that fight, but I'm also kind of dreading it at the same time if it turns out the way that it can turn out. Let's move on to another fight, which is Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. I don't even know how I feel about this one. I want to say Calvin Kattar because he's got very good takedown defense and he is the better striker, and Sterling is coming off a knockout loss and he's getting up there in age, but he's coming up to the featherweight division. I don't know if he's going to be as able and successful with his takedowns and his ability to take the back against bigger guys, but Calvin Kattar is a gamed opponent. He's coming off an injury as well, so that's why I am massively considering Aljamain Sterling here. But it's a 3-rounder, and I don't think 3 rounds massively benefits Aljamain Sterling, but at the same time, he just needs to backpack you for 2 of the rounds or find the submission. I think Calvin Kattar should be able to set the takedowns and beat him on the feet, but he's coming off that injury. Sterling's been more active despite coming off a knockout loss. I like his training camp, and he has a very tough style for a lot of strikers. And to be fair, there aren't many great grapplers at the featherweight division to really test Calvin Kattar's takedown defense and his submission defense. So I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this one. Let me know what you guys think. I want to say on paper I'll end up picking Calvin Kattar, but that injury really is concerning me. That long layoff is concerning me. So I don't know. Interesting fight. I would have liked to see Aljo versus Holloway, but obviously they did Gaethje versus Holloway. Interesting. I'm actually pretty excited for this fight. You know, there's a lot of interesting fights on this card. Sure, we didn't get the crazy UFC 300 main event that we were all longing for. We didn't get Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, Khabib versus Francis Ngannou, something crazy like that. But we got a pretty solid main event. I wish it would have been DDP versus Izzy just because we need a main event headliner for UFC 301 and Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. Pereira turns around against Ankalaev. I think he loses that, like I said. So, but yeah, let's talk about some of the other fights. I think I said Calvin Kattar is my slight lean for now, but I want to do a little bit more research, see what Aljamain Sterling is looking like on fight week. Does he look bulked up? Does he not? But outside of that, some of the other fights on the card, Bo Nickal versus Cody Brundage. Bo Nickal should win that fight. He should be able to take him down. He should be better on the feet. But although Cody Brundage is a meme and a lot of people really hate on him, I picked him against Zach Reese, by the way. Big underdog. Let's go. Anyways, but he's got good power. He's got some wrestling to his game. He can stuff a takedown. And if he stuffs a takedown, he has a power threat on the feet for the first minute or so against Bo Nickal. Maybe not minute, but when it is on the feet, he's got a power threat for Bo Nickal. Once it hits the ground, he's cooked, and Bo Nickal probably will shoot takedowns. I'm picking round 1 submission for Bo Nickal. Very confident in that, but I'm telling you right now, if Bo Nickal's going out there trying to do what he did against Val Woodburn, Brundage is a bigger guy, and he's a more powerful guy, so it'll be very, very interesting. He's strong. He's a can, but he's a type of can to where in that first minute, you could see something crazy happen. So let's move on to some of the other fights. Deiveson Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. I'm picking Deiveson Figueiredo. The low kicks from Cody Garbrandt's last opponent, the bald guy, Josh Kelleher, was just picking him apart. Deiveson Figueiredo has better low kicks. In my opinion, he looked great against Rob Font. Sure, Garbrandt has an ability to knock people out and could potentially knock out Deiveson Figueiredo, but Figueiredo has a pretty solid shin. He ate some clean shots against Rob Font. I think Figueiredo is going to go out there, look much quicker, worked in the jab. He's got the ability to take this fight down to the ground, the better submission game. I think the low kicks are going to work very well for him. I'm picking like a round 2, maybe 1 KO. I haven't thought of that, but I'm picking Figgy by KO. Low kicks is what I love from him in this matchup. Some of the other fights on the card, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. I don't know. I mean, I would have been picking Bobby Green, but he's coming off that crazy late stoppage against Jalen Turner. Jim Miller looked very good against Gabriel Benitez. Now it's Gabriel Benitez, so I feel like I'll end up picking Bobby Green, but that knockout loss is really, really concerning me. I think Jim Miller has looked very good. He's almost aged like wine. He's looked a lot better throughout his later end of his career. But, I mean, I think I'm going to end up going Bobby Green. Now, he did look good against Gabriel Benitez, so it really does confuse me. Bobby Green's a good counter striker, so I do think that maybe Jim Miller pressuring in could be issues, but Jim Miller has a takedown threat, and if he works in some takedowns, maybe he finds a sub. I don't mind him here considering the timing in Bobby Green's career. Interesting one. Let me know what you guys think. And then we got Sodiq Yusuff versus Diego Lopes. Woo, that's a fun one. I love Diego Lopes, fun guy, good power on the feet, great submissions. I think Sodiq is probably the more technical striker. Sure, he just got cooked by Edson Barbosa for 5 rounds. I mean, I think he lost 4 of the rounds, but he hurt his shoulder in round 1. I think he tore it, something like that. He mentioned it on Twitter. Not a lot of people know about that. But in round 1, while KOing him, not KOing him, but massively hurting Edson Barbosa, having a crazy round. I think it was a 10-8 in round 1. He hurt his shoulder while going for the finish, and then after that, it was wraps. He's got good cardio for 3 rounds. He should be the more technical striker, but he does get hit, and Diego Lopes has such a crazy frame for a lot of these featherweight fighters that I could see him having a lot of success. Originally, my official pick was going to be Sodiq Yusuff, but then I thought about it. Diego Lopes can be the Charles Oliveira of this division. Sick jiu-jitsu game. I don't think Sodiq Yusuff wants this fight to get taken down to the ground because we haven't seen the greatest submission game from him. We haven't seen him fight any great grapplers. And when it comes to these guys with a great submission game at the featherweight division, it's going to bring massive problems because there's a lot of strikers here that aren't used to fighting good grapplers. Not many good grapplers in the featherweight division. Like I'm saying, Diego Lopes has a submission threat that not a lot of fighters have. So I don't mind him here because if he gets hurt, he's laying on his back, and Sodiq might not want to take it down to the ground, and then he recovers like Charles Oliveira. And it just takes one big shot, one big flurry to potentially hurt Sodiq Yusuff and then catch him in a submission. I'm torn. I'm really torn on that one. I'm going to rewatch some Sodiq Yusuff film, rewatch that Edson Barbosa performance, kind of see if his shoulder really was hurting. I really remember him not really throwing the right hand after round 1 for that reason, so I feel like I might end up picking Sodiq Yusuff here. But I'm cheering all the way for Diego Lopes. Super, super fun guy to watch. I'm glad he got on UFC 300. Hopefully he builds his name here. Yeah, he's cool to watch. I mean, that's all I got to say. Really respect the performance against Movsar Evloev, who just looked pretty good against Arnold Allen. Granted, that was a close fight, but Arnold Allen is a very good fighter. So the last 2 fights on the card, Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. I don't really give a shit about it, if I'm being honest with you. Holly Holm's a boring fighter. Kayla Harrison probably going to grapple fuck her to a decision, maybe find a submission. And then Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. Okay, I get the hate on this fight, but if it's going to be a women's MMA fight, this one's guaranteed to deliver. It'll be very fun on the feet. I'm kind of thinking Jessica Andrade just because Amanda Lemos was able to pressure, find big shots against Marina Rodriguez, and she's been KO'd in the past. I think Jessica Andrade has very good power, but Marina Rodriguez is the much more technical fighter, so I don't even know. I haven't really thought about that one too much. I don't mind Jessica Andrade's side just for the KO and her explosivity. And Marina Rodriguez, like I said, does get hit, and you don't want to be getting hit against Jessica Andrade. And Jessica Andrade does have an ability to take this fight down to the ground. But Marina Rodriguez, once again, is the more technical fighter, better at fighting from range. Interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this card. I'm very excited for it. I know it's not the craziest card in the entire world, but when it comes down to it, this is a very fun card. Like, this is a very good card to look forward to. Main event will deliver. Sure, it might not do 100 million pay-per-view buys, but I can guarantee you a lot of these fights will deliver. We got a lot of fun fighters here. We have Alex Pereira, Yuri Prochazka, and Charles Oliveira all in here. I love these guys so damn much. And it would suck to see all of them lose, as it is very possible, but I'm thinking at least 2 of them are going to win. I'm picking Charles and Alex Pereira, and as of now, I don't think Yuri gets it done, but I may end up flipping my pick there. Fun card. We got some fun fights. I know it feels like we should have gotten a better main event, but when you look at the card, every single fight on this card, outside of maybe 1 or 2, is something that you're going to be salivating over. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you predicted a different way. If there's something that you feel like I left out. This is a very brief breakdown, so I'm not going to go super in depth, bringing up every performance of every fighter's career. But I think I got a pretty decent, basis of where I think this fight will play out. Or not the fight, but the fights could potentially play out. A fairly basic breakdown that's pretty solid in my opinion. So anyways, make sure to like and subscribe. That's going to conclude this video. So I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.